Okay, is it on? Yeah. Thank you, appreciate it. If you could shut the door for me. Okay. Perfect. Hi, everyone. Today we are going to go over the steps for a seller to sign and their closing docs, and then how they properly vacate the property. Most people think they just shut the door and leave, and there's a little bit more to that. So the steps for the seller to sign their closing documents. If your seller's out of state, right when you, or your, if your client, your seller is out of state, you need to make sure you tell the title company ASAP. Like right when you open escrow, they're going to ask you for seller information, their name, contact stuff. They are out of state, we will need a mobile notary, because it does take a few days to line all of that up. And then get the documents to the mobile notary, then they have to sign it, then they have to overnight them, so it does take a little bit of time. So the sooner you can tell title, the better. Sometimes at the end, the seller just decides, I'm going to move now before it closes, and then it's fine. They only need like 24 to 48 hours, but sometimes it does take a little bit of time to find a notary where they're going. And then let's see. Takes a few extra days. Okay, now that you're, now you are at least halfway through the transaction. Okay, inspections are done, appraisal is done. So the big question is, when can the seller sign? The seller can sign as soon as title lets them know. So what the process is you accept an offer and you open escrow. You open escrow, and then like immediately the title company's like, I need all your client's information. And then they're like, do you want me to order HOA docs? Rock Title does. There's some title companies that don't ever order the HOA docs. They say, oh, we don't do that. But if you can get them to order the HOA docs, that's awesome, because it's all goes through the title company. If you want to sign in and grab a paper, that way you can follow along. I prefer when the title company orders HOA docs, because they send a link to the client, and then that way when the docs come in, it goes to title, and title disperses it to everybody. If I rely on the seller to do it, they put their email, and I never know when the seller's actually received the documents. Because once the documents are received, they need to get to the buyers ASAP. Once you get to the buyers legally have 5 days to review it. So with that, you want to get that, and they stay in contingency until they've reviewed it and cleared off on them. So we want to make sure that happens right away. So we want to get those ordered as seller. So you open escrow, you order, title will hopefully order the HOA docs for you. And then they're going to order the HOA demand. And so it kind of goes along where I think legally have, it's 48 hours, maybe 72 hours to get those HOA docs ordered. And then they'll order the HOA to demand. Well, some title companies are waiting a little bit on that HOA demand, because if the transaction falls through, then the seller's obligated to purchase that HOA demand on the next transaction, and they're like $150. So I know at Rock Title, like Kathleen LaMarche always calls and says, hey, do you want me to hold off on that until we get to the appraisal part? Yes, that would be great. Then if it falls through, then that's one less thing that we have to pay for. But if they pay for it, falls out, they go on market again, now they have to pay for it again. That HOA demand has to be for property specific for that transaction, right? But not all title companies will do that for you. So that's why there's a little bit of advantage to use Rock Title, because they work with us and they get things pushed through on our time frame, rather than, hey, I'm just going to order it up front and it is what it is. It's costly to our clients sometimes, right? So once that goes through, then title they'll call you usually and say, hey, seller can sign at any time. Do you want to just wait till the end? It's up to you. I've done it both ways, where we sign early. Sometimes then if it falls apart, now they signed and wasted their time going in there, and so just know your client. If your client is one of those that's going to give you a hard time for, why did you make me go in there? Sometimes you get yelled at a little bit, but if you know that it would be helpful for them to sign, then get that done. So you're going to work with title. I always tell title, call me first. Don't call my clients directly, and that's for buyer or seller side, because I like to go to all my signings. And if they call my client first and then they schedule it and I'm not available, now I'm scrambling. So title will say, sorry, hold on, that's my daughter. Hold on. Is it an emergency? Okay. So title will call me and I'll say, hey, I have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at, from 9 to noon available, or I can only do in the afternoons. What do you have? They tell me, and I'll say, okay, here are the two dates and times, see if those work for them. And I have title call them and say, hey, these are the times that we have. Do either of those work for you? Because when they're more likely just to accept one of those times from title, but when I call, they're like, I can't do it that day. I've got a game on that day. Like, okay, so I'm having to move everything around because they want to watch a football game or something, But if title calls, they're like, oh, okay, I got to go. These are the only times title has to do it. So you're going to learn how to kind of maneuver through those a little bit. But the title calls, and then they send out an email or a text to you and your client that says, okay, everybody's confirmed for tomorrow at 12 o'clock, blah, blah, blah. Because what happens is title has to get all of the documents together, just like on the buyer's side. That's why the buyer has to wait till the very end, because as soon as the loan is done, then the buyers can go in there and sign, but it's usually the very last day or the day before. But with seller, we got everything done at the beginning. Hey, so we can go ahead and just sign as soon as it's up and ready, and we can just sit there. And then the seller can focus on packing and vacating and cleaning and all of that kind of stuff. So, but sometimes you do, if you know it's going to be a little bit of a, this might not appraise, I would wait, because we want to get through that process. No sense in title drawing up docs and then the seller driving all the way over there and then it fall apart. So, okay, so number one, the escrow and title company will coordinate with all the parties, including you, to set a time for signing. Seller is usually scheduled, and this is from I called Kathleen over at Rock Title. I said, can you give me the basics on what your criteria is when you schedule? She says the seller signing is usually scheduled once all the demands are in and escrow is pretty sure that the buyer's loan is approved. Escrow does not want the client to incur a notary fee if you're signing out of the office. So at Rock Title, they will sign, if your client goes to the title company, or they come to a Realty One office, one of the 4 offices, it's free for them to sign. If they're like, hey, I can't sign until 7 o'clock at night, we have to get a notary, the notary will go to their house, but there'll be a charge of, I don't know, $150 or something like that. If they have to meet them at a Starbucks or if they meet them at their work, but they'll be free if they sign there or they come to a Realty One office. This is usually within a few days before the closing date, but can be as soon as a couple weeks after you've accepted the offer. So most transactions are 4 to 6 weeks long, but I've had them sign in like the first week and a half. They're like, we're good to go, but it's usually a cash offer. Cash offers tend to go a little faster, 2 to 3 weeks, as opposed to 4 to 6 weeks. So they can sign right away. If you're in a non-HOA, there's one less thing that they have to do. So they're just like, okay, it's a loan. Here's your inspections. Here's your appraisal. And then we just have to work on the loan. So it goes a little bit faster. But number 2, review the closing disclosure and settlement statement. So say they've set the appointment. Now you walk into, hopefully you're going to attend that with your clients, but sometimes it's just not possible. In 20 years, I think I've missed 5 or 6 of them. I go to every one of them because we do this every day. But your clients might just do it a couple times in their life. And then it might be years apart. So they get a little nervous when they're in there like, oh my gosh. And think about it. They're selling their largest asset, or they're putting all of their money down for this asset, So they get nervous and they're like, is this right? Like they don't know what they're signing. And if you're a buyer, your packet's like this big with an HOA. If you're a seller, you're probably in and out 15, 20 minutes. But the buyers are, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. But seller also, we want to go because we want to make sure on that settlement statement, that's the first thing that you guys are going to sign. So you're going to walk in, they're going to bring you to a private room, and then you'll all sit around, usually a round table. In this state, we do not do lawyers, so it's just you and your clients. And then the title or notary will come in and sign you. So you sit down, and the first thing they do is they ask for their ID. And have your IDs to verify, and then they make them sign the notary book. And they sign the notary book. Sometimes they leave, they go make copies, and then they give the IDs back. And then the first document that they go over is going to be the settlement statement. And that settlement statement, I didn't print it out. But Kathleen gave me one, and it's 2 columns, buyer side and seller side. And you're just reviewing it. Now, usually, if you have a really good title company, they'll send it to you first for review before you even get there. I like it 24 hours before or the morning of if I know things are changing. I review it, say, hey, I noticed this is on there, the home warranty is on the wrong side. And then when I get there, they're like, oh, here are all the charges. I've reviewed it, they feel confident, but they send it to me and they send it to the buyer's agents as well to review. Does this look good to both sides? Then we review it, we say yeah, they draw it up, and that's the first document they review when we go there. And so I would check, because we had a snafu a couple months ago where my clients, because these are my long-term clients, I've sold like, I think 8 properties to their whole family, but I sold them a house 10 years ago and they're leaving the state. And so in August of last year, they're like, can you sell this house? And I said, sure. So we go in there, and there was a little snafu on the commission side, but my clients look at it, and I know it in percentages, because I have this little weird thing where I don't calculate my commission at all. And I just like, okay, I know I'm getting a percentage, but I don't think about it in my head, because the deal always falls apart in my mind and when I start calculating money. So I just like, okay, yeah, that's my percentage. Okay, great. And I just move on. Well, my client goes to sign. She's like, I feel like I thought we were making like $3,000 more. And I'm like, I said, okay. So I got through my documents and I was like, oh, remember we lowered the price, and we're going through it, my estimate and my net sheet, all of that. And they're like, okay. Well, what happened was, after closing, the buyer's agent contacted me and she said, hey, you as the seller listing agent gave me 2.5%, and I went to my buyers to get an extra 0.5%. Okay, great. But the title company charged my sellers 3% and went after them, so that buyer's agent was getting 3.5%. And I was like, and we were only intending on paying, but I calculated in percentages, and on the net sheet it was on dollars. And so I was just like, yeah, looks good. And my client questioned it, and I was like, no, I'm pretty sure, because I went back to my net sheet, and I was like, nope, it's all there. But you really have to sit there. So we got it straightened out after close of escrow. That buyer's agent was nice enough to get the check and then send it back over, and then the title company had to disperse it to us, to disperse it to them. It was a whole big thing. But it happens. So that's what our job is to go over that stuff. We even make mistakes, guys, but it's our job to kind of be that second set of eyes. Because title as well, they don't know our clients. They're not talking to our clients. They're just calculating the information that listing agent gives them, buyer's agent gets them, mesh it all together. That's title's job. Listing side, buyer side, mesh it all together and spit out the documents for everybody to sign. That's it. So that's why when you've got an addendum, it has to be worded a certain way, because they're like, title gets it and they're like, well, what do you really mean by that? So I need you to rewrite this, reword this. That's why sometimes you'll ask me something, and how do you want me to say that? I'm like, you know what? Get with title, because title's going to tell you what verbiage they want on that. Like, especially if a transaction is canceling, that's a big one. I'm like, get with title and see. Each title company is different, so they want specific verbiage on how things are written sometimes on those addendums. So they're very specific on there. So you're going to go through all those, and if that's good, they sign off on it. Then they start going through all of the documents. And it's really quick. If there's two sellers, they're going to go, okay, this is what this form is. I need you to sign right there. They're not reading it. Okay, so especially sometimes buyers are like, no, I want to read it. And it's like, that will take you 2 days to read all of that stuff. They give you like a 3-day right of revision if you want to, but right of rescission. But they're really just like, hey, this is what that form is. I just need you to sign it. Hey, this is your proration from the sewer company. This is your HOA prorations. This, so they're just telling you and you're signing, and then that's it. And then when you go to leave, sometimes they'll give you, the seller, a copy of everything they signed. Sometimes it's electronic. Sometimes they just give them the settlement statement. So each title company does it different. Like, so I can't really instruct you on how they're going to go. But the main thing is you walk in, you sit down. They're going to take copies of their ID, and then they're going to make them sign the book, and then you're going to go over that settlement statement. That's it. So let's see. Next page.
Wendy, sorry. So on the snafu that you said that happened, is it just because had you done percentages, would you have caught it?
I might have. Yeah, I probably would have, because it would have said 3.5%. And the problem is with this new NAR law, we're just used to the seller paying the commissions. Well, now the seller only paid some, so she went after the buyer, and then they just kind of, it just went over. Yeah, it was just mixed up. It was a simple mistake. It happens. I don't get too caught up with the little mistakes on numbers and things like that on there. I just say, hey, you know what? We got a lot of people's hands in the pot here. They're going to straighten that out. No worries about it. Okay. But if you guys get really stressed out, your clients are going to get stressed. Who's going to pay this? They owe me this, and time, pain and suffering, and It's not like that, guys. Like, there's a lot of us that are in this, so just mixed communication here. They're going to get that straightened out. It took an extra week, but they got all their money, and then it took an extra week for that $3,000. You know, no big deal. They weren't needing it. They weren't leaving right that second. But I could see how it could possibly turn into something major. But you're just going to roll with it, and if you guys stay calm, they'll stay calm.
Okay.
But yeah, sometimes we miss things. And then also different title companies write different things, line items. And you're like, what is that? Where's that? Oh, I'm missing that. No, that's line 14. Oh, okay. But everybody does something different. So always ask when you were reviewing something and you think something's missing or something's added that shouldn't be, you bring it to their attention. Because better to do it before you get in front of your clients, and then now their clients have lost trust in there, and it just do it right away. Okay, so what the seller needs to bring to the day of signing, everyone on the deed needs to sign. So with that, some clients, you'll get like a husband and wife, and then the husband's like, well, I'm working, just go sign. Okay, well, your name's on there, so now they have to sign twice, you know. They have to make another appointment. It's not that easy. If your name is there, you've got to both be there. Or there might be 4 buyers, who knows, or sellers, but they all have to be there. Each person will need at least one form of identification. Back in the day, it was 2. So I think right now, if they have a driver's license or a passport, that works too. If one of the sellers has passed away, but is still on the deed, you will need a death certificate. And usually, that is brought up at the very beginning of the transaction. And if you know about it, you need to disclose that to title as soon as you open, escrow. You're like, hey, just to let you know, there's 2 names on there. The husband has passed. Here's you're going to need to get, sometimes they want the original death certificate. I know that's a tricky one because people don't like to give that up, but title will tell you exactly what they need. Hey, what are you needing? This is what has happened.
Even if it's under a trust?
So trust is a little different. Ran into that one too. So the trust, you're going to need copies of certain pages of the trust, if not all of the trust. So same people that I forgot to, and this was my fault, is I forgot to tell them they had to have a separate trust account to get the money deposited into. So with that, they were making $200,000 in equity, right? So it was like a week and a half before, and the title company says, hey, you just make sure your clients have the trust account so we can wire the money. And I was like, hey guys, you have that, the trust account. What trust account? Well, title can only disperse funds for whoever's name is on that tax record. So if it's ABC Trust, there needs to be an account for them to wire to ABC Trust. It's not their personal account. They're like, no, it's my trust, so just deposit it to me. We don't care that you're a signer. Your bank account needs to say ABC Trust. So they had to go down to, I think they had Chase Bank, and they wanted 12 days. 12 days, you can walk into Wells Fargo and they can get it done for you that same day. But I was like, guys, and they're like, no, we don't trust Wells Fargo. I'm like, okay, you might hold up the signing for that. Why didn't anybody tell us? I'm like, well, we're still a week and a half away. If not, you could just walk into Wells Fargo. They did not. They're like, we're going to close it anyways. Okay, well, just walk into Wells Fargo. But they didn't want to do that. They waited for, there's just all these little things that just kept happening with this one. Thank goodness they're friends of ours, and I've known them for years, but that's a big deal, is make sure the minute they say that it's in a trust and you're taking the listing, you're going to make sure that they have a trust account set up for that, right? That was my fault. I didn't do that. I had just because they're spot on with everything they do. So I just figured, but no, don't figure. And then, so make sure the seller has a bank account for wiring their instructions. So even if it's not in a trust, it's just their names. Make sure they come with their bank account number, the routing number, all of that. Because when they're signing their documents, title's going to say, where do you want the money wired to? And they're going to give them a paper, and they have to fill out that information for the bank, right? Number 4, documents that they'll be signing. They're going to see, you're typically going to sign the grant deed, which transfers ownership to the buyer to the buyer. Affidavit of title declares no new claims on the property. Seller's closing disclosure, the payoffs. Any IRS forms, utility prorations. Some people think they're going to list their house and then just stop paying for everything. HOA, the sewer, the trash. So then when you get to closing, you got all these fees that they have to pay. And they're like, what's that for? Well, you still have to pay them. So seller has to pay up until, like if you're closing on the 15th, seller has to pay up to the 15th. And then on the settlement statement, there's going to be a charge for the rest of the month from the 15th to the 30th for the buyer. And they just think that it's closing this month, I shouldn't have to pay any of it, and that's not the case. It's prorated to the day. So if you guys have to extend, title usually has to rework those numbers. So keep that in mind. So then number 5, you're going to attend the appointment. I strongly encourage you to attend the signing with you. We do this part of a business because I had this one client, there's always an example, but this one client, engineer, loved him to death, but he's very like, you could not throw anything at him that he did not need to research, like that he had to research everything, right? So we get in there and he's like, wait a minute, what's this? I wasn't aware, no, I got to read it. They're like, sir, you cannot sit here all day and read these documents. And he's like, no, I'm not signing anything to the rate. They're like, okay, we're going to go ahead and email them to you, and you're going to have to come back. He's like, I can't. And so my job was to sit there and calmly just say, okay, what is your concern? What is the problem? Here we have a 3-day right of rescission, right? So we can sign it. You could take it home with you today. You can read it. But that's our job, to calm them down. It is not title and escrow's job to handle our crazy clients sometimes, right? This same client is a type that he would not drive on the freeway. He would not sign anything through the computer because he thought people were watching him. So you have to go the extra mile sometimes, right? So when I knew that, title knew that, he would go in there almost daily to do things and check on things, and there was no need for that. If they sent him something, he'd have to print it out at a Kinko's because he wouldn't print it out on his computer, and then he'd go get that, and then he'd sign it with pen only, and then he'd have to go and physically hand it to them. I got to the point where I'm like, I can't keep driving around, so hey, we're going to send you whatever. You can come to my office, I'll print it out for you. I'm doing all I can, but it was very meticulous, the whole thing, right? And so they stopped seeing him. That like the front desk girl was just, the escrow officers would not come out anymore. They're like, nope, we're not going to deal with it. And so then if I hadn't attended the signing and then that had happened, he would have walked away. I'm done. I'm not buying this house. I'm like nothing. So you know your clients, you get to know them, and you want to give the ones that need that a little extra attention. There's stories upon stories. But anyways, okay, so attending the signing appointment, I encourage you to go. That's part of our job, but it's part of our professionalism. And sometimes you'll be sitting there, and then the escrow officer will walk in and say, it is so nice to see a realtor that shows up for their client. You know how many brownie points you just got? But also, you know what I do? I bring my file of all my documents that I've collected, and I sit there, and there's nothing I really need other than they'll show me the settlement statement, and I'll go over that, and then I sit there with them, and we look, okay, can you explain this? Or they're, okay, great. There's nothing else I need to do, usually. Maybe one form that the lender needs me to sign, but otherwise, randomly every, 4 or 5 minutes, I'll open it up, and I'll start going through my big stack of papers, and I'm like, oh, okay, yep, It shows that I have done work, because 90% of the work you're going to do, they're never going to see that you did it. So they'd think you're just sitting back waiting to collect. So if I show them my big file, I show up, I'm present, I'm there for inspections, I'm there for everything. They feel like they got their money's worth out of us, right? And it's not that we're not doing anything. We're just putting out the fire so they don't have to. And I don't need to tell them about every fire, but I need them to see I actually worked this whole transaction. So, because sometimes the hard part is when they're going over that settlement statement, there is a line on there for commissions, and they have to sign it. And then there's another form on there for commissions, and it's spelled out. And guess what? They are like, wow. That same client, she patted me on the back. And when they brought that, she goes, here, signed it. And she's like, like as if I didn't deserve it. Just ate that up because I sell a lot of properties for for them. And they've got one more left before they leave. And I know that in the next year or so. But it's like as if I wasn't deserving of it. Okay, all right, just smile. You're almost done, right? Anyway, so they'll usually, the signing is usually done in person at the title office, the escrow office or whatever, the title company, but they can do a mobile notary. So if they live up here or in North Las Vegas and our escrow company, title company is by IKEA and they don't want to drive, elderly people, I'll do pick up and I'll say, hey, let's grab a coffee and we'll go over there and then I'll drop you off. If they are having problems signing, I want them to have the experience. I want them to feel like, okay, because a lot of times they're like, my son or daughter usually comes and, I'm there for support. That's really all I am there for. But most of the time they'll meet me over there. I get there a few minutes early. I don't like to bring closing gifts there, but you can make a whole big thing of it. I like to, before it records, or once it does record, I'm over there, I'm setting it up in the house, and then, if I'm the buyer's agent. But as I'm the listing agent, I like to make one more trip after it's done, all said and done, maybe to where they're staying, the hotel, whatever. But if they're out the door as soon as they sign, I'll bring them something. But, I think keep in mind, if they're flying out, if they're driving cross country, don't get them something large that they're like, okay, where am I going to pack this now? So keep that in mind. This is usually done in person. Signing usually takes, I put 30 to 60 minutes, but really it's about 15 to 20 for seller package because they're very small. But if they are in a community that's got 2, 3, 4 HOAs, that's going to take a little bit because you have to sign off for each HOA. All of you check in, then they'll seat you in the private office. They'll immediately ask to see the IDs. They'll always present the settlement statement first, and they move on to the remainder, and then at the end they make copies for the seller. That is it. So I can't really go over each document because each package is a little different, but you're really just sitting there for support. So I can't stress that enough. So a lot of agents are like, I'm not going to waste my time going there. That's a big portion of it. So you should sit there for your support. Now, confirm the documents completed. If you aren't there or they have to get a mobile notary, you're going to confirm with title. Title's going to email you usually like, hey, we just received the documents back, that they're properly signed and notarized too. So they'll sign a waiver form in there that says, hey, if we miss something or you've misspelled something, you're giving us the right to correct that thing. There's a couple of things that they can't do that on, so they might call them back, which is a huge inconvenience, but it happens. Things get missed, or there's a paper that the lender needs them to sign in the office. So things like that will happen, but usually everything's done right then and there. Your sale is not final yet, but this is the key step towards closing. I don't like the word key in there. I'm going to remove that because they're thinking they can bring the keys. Do not bring the keys. Do not, no buyer should ever get keys until it's physically recorded, and then the title company gives you that. So the seller, they can't withhold the keys either. I've had sellers do that, take all the keys out, and they're like, they're not coming in until I know that it records. But you got to leave it in there because they have every right to go back in there. Some buyers agents choose not to do their walkthroughs until they're driving to the signing. Things get stolen, appliances get stolen, houses get broken into. They want to know it's in the same condition it is that they made the offer on. But sellers are like, no, they're not coming into my house until then. I'm not done moving out. I try to encourage my sellers to vacate the property 24 hours prior to close of escrow, if not before. When I'm writing an offer for a buyer, I want to say I'm going to do my walkthrough a minimum of 3 days, 3 days or less, but I'm trying to tell my seller, you should get out there as soon as possible. But sometimes they're like, I have nowhere to go and the moving truck's not coming. Okay, but I relay that information to the buyer's agent. But you want them kind of to get out, and then just don't disperse keys on, the seller has to leave them and the buyer can't take them until it's actually recorded. Now, once the buyer's loan is complete, then the buyer goes in and signs, and then escrow combines the seller documents and the buyer documents together, and then they send it down to the assessor's office to record. And usually what's going to happen is you're going to get an email from the title company that says, is everybody good to release for recording? Because they want to know that we're good. And then when both parties say yes, then they go ahead and either send somebody physically down to the assessor's office with the stacks of all of these closings, and you just have to wait for them to sign to record, or they have an electronic one that they just upload it, and then the assessor's office gets it to it when they can. Not every title company does electronic signings or closings. So there are some of them, and here's the thing: if they're like, okay, well, the buyer's loan funded, then it record. Well, if they sign, they fund, and they record. Well, the buyer funded, and so usually within 24 hours, it's going to record. So people are like, okay, so by 9 a.m. Well, they might release it at 9 a.m., but it might not get recorded until 4. And what happens if the lender doesn't get the documents back until like 3 or 4? Guess what? It's not recording that day. So now you need to do an addendum to extend another day. So there's certain cutoff timelines too of when all documents need to be in for the title company to actually be able to record. So the title company is really good about letting you know, hey, we just got to get docs in by 11, otherwise it's not going to record today. We got to get docs in by 1 or it's not going to record. They'll let you know. But it matters because buyers sometimes have their moving truck there that day and they're just expecting to move in, and some buyers agents don't realize you can't just let them in. The buyers cannot step foot in there unless it's negotiated on, and I strongly encourage you not to ever let a buyer in until it's recorded in their name. Because if they burn the home down or if they flood the house, guess what? They're walking away and it's all your seller's problem. It's just, unless they're doing a lease back, and then that's a whole other set of paperwork that you need, but we want to make sure that it's recorded and then the keys are dispersed. But so we're confirming all the documents are complete. Step 6 is wait for the buyer's loan to fund. So say we signed as sellers at like week 2. Now we're just sitting there waiting. So the seller's just packing up, doing things, cleaning things. The lender will send the loan docs to title. Title draws up the buyer's documents and sets the appointment for the buyer to sign. Once the buyer's lender sends everything, send the funds to escrow, all the buyer and seller documents are finalized and combined. And at this point, title will release the file to record at the county assessor's office. There's a cutoff time. I just went over that. Okay, 7. Close of escrow and key delivery. The sale records with the county. Title and escrow will send out a congratulatory email. Usually you're going to get something from your escrow office that says, congratulations everybody, it's been a pleasure working with you. The file has officially recorded. And then they'll send something or just proof that it actually recorded. If you are expecting it to record by Thursday at 5 o'clock and at like 4:30 you haven't received something, email or call your escrow officer. Now, there's been times where they're like, they're still down there. It looks like it's going to be closer to 6 o'clock. If they're willing to work after hours, cool. I'll sit there and wait, but that buyer is not getting in that house until I get confirmation. When you work with Rock Title, we have access at 7 o'clock at night. I want to call Kathleen. Hey, did it record? I didn't get anything. She'll let me know. Other title companies, 5 o'clock, good luck. You won't know until the next day when your buyer could have been in there. Now they got to get a hotel. Like it's a problem. So there's so many advantages working with Rock Title. So I strongly encourage you guys to do it. Close of escrow, delivery, the sale record. Okay, keys are delivered to the buyer. At this time, all keys, remotes, and instructions for anything regarding the property should be left on the premises, and that's what we're going to go into next. And then the proceeds are wired to the seller, usually within 24 hours. So that's if they left their bank statements, because a lot of times we don't remind them to bring in their bank information, not statements, their bank information, like their account number and all that. So they're signing and they're like, oh, I'll get you that. And then they never call title back with that information. Then it records and they're like, where's my money? Did you ever give title your bank account number? They're like, oh no. So at that point, they can opt to go in and physically pick up a check, or they can call title and then they can have it wired over. But it needs to be within a couple days. Title doesn't want to hold checks of money, or large amounts of money. So, but usually once it records, that's the first question. Once it closes, when am I going to get my money? They all want to know when they're going to get the money. I like to say 24 to 48 hours. It's usually 24. But just in case there's a buffer and it closes at 4:45 on Wednesday, and they don't process it till Thursday, and then the wire hits on Friday. So just do yourself a favor. Always offer that more, and then if it can be sooner, awesome. But okay, so then real quick, and this is a short one, is the seller vacating list. People think the seller just walks out and closes the door. That's not the case. The property must be clean, and they say broom swept condition. But that does not mean, hey, I'm taking everything out of my drawers and then just have them wipe the drawers out. Nobody wants to go into a new kitchen with food in the drawers. It's just disgusting. Tell them to just run the vacuum real quick as they're pulling all their silverware out, run the vacuum. It doesn't have to be meticulous, but it has to be clean, guys, because they might not be able to afford a cleaning crew. And now they're spent the next week, deep cleaning somebody else's house, and it's gross. But they don't, I say this loosely, but they don't have to wipe or Windex all the windows. It would be nice if they did and make it really pretty and shiny. But really, they say broom swept. That does not mean leaving so much trash out front of the house that you can't pull in the driveway. That does not mean pulling all the furniture from upstairs that you don't want and putting it in the garage. It's not the buyer's job to clean that house or haul away. Because if that's the case, I'm going after, as a buyer's agent, I'm going after that listing agent. In the contract, it said broom swept condition. There's nothing to be left here. What is going on? I will give you the bill for the haul away because I'm not paying it. They're not paying it. And that listing agent should have known better. So as a listing agent, you need to inform your clients. You can't leave trash. Don't put we had them leave like trash in the garage, like old food. They just dumped it out of the refrigerator for like 2-3 days in the heat. it stunk up and went into the house. It's just, the smell is horrendous. You just can't do that. They have to make a trip to the dump. I don't know, or schedule it. Hey, we got to get all this stuff out because the trash is coming on Wednesday. Like, they've got a plan for that. Do you have a question?
Yeah, when you say going after the buyer's agent, does that mean like you're doing
The listing agent.
Or the listing agent? You're basically going right to the house right before closing and
I do.
noticing this, and then saying like money's being held back in escrow
Yep.
because of this.
So they don't like you to withhold or stop closing, but I've gone there on my way to the signing because it's supposed to record that day. I've gone there and I'm like, what is this couch in the garage? And so I email title immediately, so I have in writing, hey, I just went to the house. There's a big couch that needs to be removed. I'm not releasing to record until that's removed. And then I start calling the listing agent. What is that? Oh, they just didn't want it, so we thought we'd leave it there for you guys. I don't want your junk. They don't want your junk. Do you know how much it's going to cost to haul that away? Like, I said, okay, well, you can take $10,000 off the price. We'll get that all written up, and then I'll get that taken care of. Well, it's not worth $10,000. Exactly. So move it. Get it. Like, I'm not nice about things. Like, you know better than that. Don't leave your trash. It's not my job. It's not your job, because guess what? It becomes our job because we have upset clients. And now I'm paying haul away charges. I'm not going to do that. And it's usually from an agent that has discounted me. And I'm like, I can't, I'm like, what is the deal? Like, I'm already making peanuts because you couldn't stand tight for us realtors, and now you want me to pay all these charges. No, not going to happen. So I'm like, I'm going to withhold the closing, and it's going to be your fault. And then it's going to cost your seller even more money because we've got all of these days that they're going to incur other charges. But yeah, you don't see that too often. But they'll be like, I had one girl that she was a single mom, and she was selling this Airbnb, and they didn't want any of the furniture. And so she's like, nope, I got it, no big deal. Well, she thought her brother was going to help her, and he didn't. So she just broke down these beds with a hammer and just put piles of wood out front. So I went to go get my lockbox, and I was like, what is all this? And luckily the buyers were out of state. They weren't moving in for a couple days. I'm taking pictures, and I call my seller. I'm like, no, you need to call somebody right now and this is not acceptable. But if she didn't do it, I would have had to do it, because we were already closed. She was already out of state. Like, there's nothing you can do, but she called somebody else, and somebody came with a truck and picked it up. But we got to do what we got to do. But it's better to tell them when you're taking that listing, broom sweat condition just doesn't mean the dust bunnies. That means you need to really clean your house. I always say, if you have a steam cleaner, just run the steam cleaner. You don't have to go buy one. You don't have to go pay for one. But if you have dogs or there's a smell or something, just out of niceness, a courtesy to the buyer, you would want that done for you. Unless the carpet needs to be ripped up, don't bother, because why clean it if they're going to rip it up right when they come in? But I say do your best. Don't leave toothpaste in the sinks. Like, just come on, it's just common knowledge. But sometimes they're like, well, I'm just closing the door and I'm going. And it's just not fair. So I always say do your part as an agent to try to make it, because guess what? You're going to probably eventually work with that agent again, or you're going to make an offer on their property and they're going to remember you. Guess whose offer might not get accepted because you didn't, act the way you should have on the other deal. So again, we might have 16,000 licensed realtors here in Nevada, but probably 20% of them are really actively working. We know those 20%. We're calling, we can see their signs, we're listed, like they're wanting to do open house, like we're interacting with each other. So if you behave that way, it's gonna come back and bite you. So just do your job.
When there's a lease back.
What about it?
A lease back.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a closing date, let's say the seller stayed for another month or so.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
I
walk
do.
through?
Mm-hmm. I do, because you're going to need one to close your file, because our TCs will not close that file without that walkthrough. So you're going to do one, but you're going to write in that contract a second walkthrough to be done. The seller doesn't so much want it, but if I'm representing the buyer, I'm going to say the second walkthrough, to be done prior to close of escrow, and you're going to put some money in there, that the seller's going to withhold back, withhold $5,000 as security deposits, and then upon completion and agree, both parties agree to release that, money, then I'll give it back to you. But sometimes the sellers, they just beat the property up in that month. I don't know why. They're moving out now. They just don't care. It's not their house. There's stains on the carpet now. I don't know why they act like it's a rental now. No, it's their house. That's not the way they make. So that's why I do not just like, 1 month, no, it's going to be a little bit more than that, because it's 1 month. That's my first month. Because you guys are aware when you represent a buyer, say they close April 10th. They get all of April free, all of May free, and their first payment is June 1st. So now if you've got a seller in there and they're staying until the middle of May, now you're only getting a half a month and then your first payment's due. So you need to make sure that you're collecting enough reserves to float those 2 free payments, because you immediately you haven't even lived in the home, so you're renting somewhere or you're paying a mortgage somewhere, and then you just have to go right into another one. The banks are nice enough to give you, the month you've closed in and another month free, and then you don't even get to utilize it. So you need to make sure you're collecting that in case they damage the house. Now you're like, now I have to rent even longer because I got to fix their damages. So you got to think about all of that. So when you guys are writing offers and having me review them, as a buyer, I'm thinking, okay, what's going on? If I see a lease back, I'm like, okay, that's a whole other thing in additional terms. We've got to, what the dates are and what the monies are and all that stuff. As sellers, I try to let them know in my MLS listing, sellers might need an additional 30-day rent back. And I say might because if an offer is phenomenal, they're like, hey, we'll just take it and I'll find somewhere else to go. But if they're like building a home and they're like, I'm going to have to move twice and it's going to cost me $6,000 here and $6,000 there, I have to do what's best for my seller and say, hey, this is what we're looking at, and I'll tell them we are building a home. Completion date is expected, because completion date is not always that date. Could be sooner, but it could also be 3 months later. So you have to reword all of that. So I don't care if you're 2 months into your journey here or 20 years in. If you need help writing any of that in additional terms, because we don't do lease backs all the time, or contingencies. Hey, I'm going to buy your home, but it's contingent on me selling this one. There's special verbiage for that, right? And there's special forms that need to be done. So always come to us. I don't care what it is, because it's not the easiest thing to navigate, and you want to make sure you're covered, because if not, guess who they're going to come for any of those fees? You guys, right? Well, I wasn't expecting that. Okay, now here's my commission. So I try not to give away my commission, guys. I am one that will hold tight as long as I can, but if there's a mistake on my end, I will fess up to that right away, and I will pay that out. But there are things that sometimes you get stuck and you're like, they should have done it. They're like, oh, I don't have the money. And you're like, oh my God, okay, that's fine. So, but it's just the name of the game here. But all right, so you're gonna clean the property. And I put in there, clean all the rooms, the floors, the surfaces, wipe the counters off. Nothing's worse than going in there and they're like setting their stuff down. They're like, oh my God, there's food all over the counter. It's just gross. I get dust, but not food, should not be there. Clean out the appliances. A lot of people just neglect the oven. It needs to be like it's just something blew up in there and you guys have been cooking on it for another year and it's just baked on there. Just get it clean. You guys could set a self-cleaning mode there. But the microwaves are always disgusting. Most people are like, oh, this is gross, and they pull it out and get their own microwave, because if you just clean it, they can at least use it for a little bit. That's nice. But wipe your kitchen drawers, the cupboards. They take all of their dry goods out and they just leave it, and there's just stuff everywhere, flour and all that. So. And then move trash and debris inside and outside of the home. Nothing can be left in the house for the buyers to haul away. Remove all personal belongings. Okay, this is a big one. Ensure the closets, the cabinets, the attics, the basements, the garages, sheds, all shelves, that they didn't forget anything. Because people like to hide stuff and then they forget that they hid it. So I can't tell you how many times I found jewelry. My clients are like, hey, we just found some jewelry. Guns. They put a gun in the attic, like in their little crawl space. Okay, well, you can. So there's a lot of times that I always tell my clients, just go through everything underneath cabinets. Like they're like, oh, nobody will find it. And then you forgot about it too, and it's under there. Money, they just leave all sorts of stuff. So tell them, have you ever hidden anything in the house? Do you remember where you hid it? So check anywhere where you think you might want to hide something now, because you probably hid something there. And get rid of it, because a lot of people aren't honest, and you might not ever get it back, right? So anything that's included, or any items not included in the sale, must be removed. Because they're like, oh, you know what, I don't think I'm going to use this nightstand. You can't just leave it. You need to go donate it or something. But then they say things are included and then they decide they want to take them. Well, you can't, because now it's in the contract. So I'll say, okay, well, you can take it, but now we're going to ask them what monetary value they thought it was worth, and you're going to have to pay it, whatever they say. Or you could just leave it. You just tell me what you want to do. And then they're like, okay, never mind, just leave it. Okay. Because your job, you guys, you're the negotiator, but you're trying to make both sides happy. And no, I don't represent the other side, but I also don't want them to get so mad that they're walking away over a nightstand, or a fan. I love this fan. Okay. Do you think it's worth $500? Well, no. I'm like, okay, because they're probably going to ask for that. Do you think, okay, do you want to just leave it? Maybe buy another one? It's probably for $200? Where are you at, So they're like, okay. They're moving out of their home, the home that they made a ton of memories in. So sometimes it's very hard for them to part with certain things, even if it's like the garage hanging shelves. That's the number one fighter for me. Like, sellers say they'll leave it, the buyers write it in the contract, then the seller decides, you know what, this would be great in my new house. They take it out, and I have no clue, and then the buyer's agent's calling me, we just did our walkthrough and all the garage shelves are missing. Are you kidding me? I said, guys, you can either go back and install them, or you can go buy them new ones and leave them on the floor, and then they can tell you what the charge is to have somebody fix that. What would you like? You know, but I always tell them, guys, 2 or 3 times, in additional terms, you guys have agreed to leave those shelves, right? And then as they're almost vacating, you guys left those shelves, right? I don't, like, because they always love to take those shelves out. Don't know why. If it's affixed to the walls, it's staying unless it's negotiated on before at the beginning, right? Let's see. Complete any agreed upon repairs. Sellers like to tell you they're going to complete the repairs when you're doing your inspection, and they're like, hey, these are the repairs I want. And they're like, yep, I'll get it done before close of escrow. And then they think nobody's going to check on it. Yeah, so it will hold up I'm always like, okay, great, guys, when do you have that scheduled? When do you think it's going to be done? Send me the invoices once it's done. I chase them for that because they think, and I tell them, it's not a handyman, it's not your next door neighbor, it's not a friend from, Maryland that's coming in to visit you that's just going to fix it. No, it is a licensed contractor per the contract. Unless agreed upon, yeah, you can get your handyman to fix this. So they just think they're going to do it themselves, and that's not how that works. So you're asking for invoices the whole way through to get those, and I leave the invoice, I copy them and I leave them. You want to keep a copy for yourself in case something happens later on. You have proof that you were given them, right? So you leave a copy in a file, you scan them, you email it, like whatever you're going to do, but you're going to keep those invoices to show proof that the sellers actually did what they said they're going to do. Provide any receipts or warranties on appliances and whatnot. It's always nice if your sellers have the manuals to all of their appliances. That's great. The buyers feel like they really took care of the house, and all they did was keep the manual. I have a whole closet of manuals probably for 25 years, and I never went back and looked at them, but I was like, which one goes to this house? Like, I've had so many houses, I'm like, I don't know. And then you have tenants that come in there, and you're like, which one is what? I don't know, but if you can keep those manuals in there, that's awesome, right? And then, fix anything, vacate property. Okay, cancel or transfer utilities. This is a big one, okay? I like to tell my sellers, you are leaving the utilities on the whole entire time and at least 2 days after closing. Because nothing's worse than you're thinking you're closing on the 15th and it didn't close and now it records on the 16th, but all the utilities shut off and then the buyers come over to move in and nothing's on. They have no power, no gas, no water. They can't move in, and now they're going to take 6 days for them to get them turned on. What is going on? I've got a moving truck outside. So what I do is I tell my clients we're going to give them 2 days. So if we're closing on the 15th, I let everybody know as of the 17th, all utilities are being shut off. Because if they're shut off before the buyer initiates them to turn on, the buyer's going to get all reconnect fees. And those can be very costly. So if I put it in an email and that buyer's agent didn't tell their clients, that's not on me. I have an email. I told you when they were going to be shut off. And out of niceness, I gave you 2 extra days. But because sometimes things happen and whatever, I wouldn't want to be moving in and all of a sudden everything goes out. You're like, what is going on? And then the gas company is known to, they're a fun one. Hey, from 8 to 8 on Thursday. And I'm like, well, it's Thursday right now. Well, yeah, next Thursday, 8 to 8. You have to sit there all day long. So as a buyer's agent, because the buyers are like, I've got to work. Guess who's sitting at the house from 8 to 8? That would be me, and waiting for them to turn on, because usually the gas company will not turn on gas unless somebody's present. So, and they have to get into the house. And so now you're sitting there all day long, like, okay, I'll catch up on my stuff. But that's what happens because you didn't alert them to go ahead and initiate that, right? So big thing. This also includes items connected to Wi-Fi. Okay, another big thing. Ring doorbells, cameras, thermostats. Your sellers have to log out of them before they move because nobody wants somebody else having access to their Ring doorbell camera and watching who comes in and out. Yes?
Not just log out, remove and disconnect from the account.
Yes, that's a big one. I say log out, but you're right. They need to disconnect. And so my last sellers, they did a disconnect and it gave them a confirmation, said you are disconnected from this account. She gave it to me and I sent them to there, but thank you. Yes, needs to, because people are like, okay, there's cameras in the house, can they see? Like it's just creepy, right? But the thermostat, You're like, what is going on with this thermostat? And somebody's messing with the thermostat. They don't even, they just get, oh, I didn't like the price I got, so I'm just constantly going to remove, up and down their thermostat. Like, people are nasty sometimes, so just make sure. And you as an agent needs to, on that seller side, just say, hey, I need proof that you've logged out of everything. Can you tell me the date, the time, and send me the confirmation? And then that way you can give it to your client, and then your client, the buyer's agent, and then say, this is what I've gotten. So if they want, when they initiate, maybe it'll, clarify, or hey, not two people in one account. I don't know, but this is all I've gotten from them, so you know. Let's see. Set the forwarding address for any final bills. A lot of people forget to do that. And so they no longer have Ring camera anymore because they left it. But they didn't alert them that they have a forwarding address and they have one more month of the bill that they have to pay. So now your seller's getting collections because they didn't pay that last bill, but they never got the bill because it was for that house they just sold. So I always tell them, go into every account and just give a forwarding, get a P.O. box, whatever you got to do, just so you're not missing bills. And then you've got, it's ruining your credit. Deliver all access items. What does that mean? That's what the keys. Okay, keys and remotes. This is a big one. They'll leave one front door key. Okay, so what am I supposed to do with that? The back door has a separate key. The side gates have separate keys. The garage might have a separate key. Where are all the keys? That's all I have. They love to do that and give me one key. Oh, it's just a key in the lockbox. So you mean to tell me this whole time we've been listed, you haven't had a key? No. I'm like, well, you haven't accessed my lockbox. Did you just leave the house unlocked? I question my people. I'm like, no, that's not right. Then you need to go get 5 more keys, 4 more keys. I don't care. 2 more keys. I don't care what it is. We need multiple keys. So if you get yourself your clients as a buyer's agent, if you get your buyers a home warranty, a lot of the home warranty companies will do the first rekey for free for up to 4 or 5 doors. So it's always a nice gift for them to start off with a new rekey so they're not worried about. But if they don't have that, I always say, first thing you guys should do is rekey this house. I don't know how many neighbors have this key, dog sitters or whatever. But as the seller, I always say that 24 hours before we're recording, I need you to leave every remote, every key, every lock, every code to anything in one of these kitchen drawers and tell me which drawer it is. I don't like to leave them on the counter because if they've already left and somebody saw them leave and they're poking in and now they have all that stuff, they're like, oh, look at all the access stuff. The gate clickers, the garage clickers, everything is to be left in that drawer. And then I always say, if you can write something really nice, how the sprinklers work or how the pool works, people really appreciate that because they're walking in going, I don't even know how to turn this pool pump on. How to turn the pool light on. What am I supposed to do? So you could give them a little breakdown. That's always nice. It's rare, I'll be honest, but it's nice. I always tell my clients as a seller, a listing agent, tell my sellers, can you just do a little write-up to tell them how the sprinklers work or what you have them set to, when the trash time is, what mailbox number? That's a big one. Because they're like, I can't get the mail. I've got a mail key. So now they're up there trying everybody's mailbox, looking like they're trying to break in. Just have the seller tell you what mailbox number it is. That's nice to switch over. But and then leave behind any documents, appliance manuals, warranties, helpful information for the buyer. It's optional but appreciated. And then that's pretty much it. Wait, I think there's something on the back. Oh, there is. Take final photos. So as a listing agent, if I know that there's things being left or something that there was maybe a fight over or whatever, I'll go in before it records and I'm taking pictures and they're time stamped, right? On my phone, and then if the buyers come in there and like, this was this, or if they broke something when they were moving in, I'll say, hey, I might even do a walkthrough video and just say, hey, this is, 24 hours before closing or 5 hours before closing, and I do a quick little video or pictures, and then if the buyer's agent calls me and says, there's a big hole, well, guess what? Not when we were there. I was the last one in the house. Sometimes it is your seller. And I'm so sorry. I will have them repair that, get an estimate, and I will make sure it's taken care of. And if not, then they're going to have to sue each other because it's usually $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 of repairs, and I'm not paying that. So, for the most part, you do have good clients, but things do happen sometimes, and we are in the middle of it. But that other agent should be your best friend during this transaction. It's like, hey, okay, we got to get this done. They're fighting over $600. Do you want to pay $3,000? I'll pay $3,000. We'll just get this done. But again, I don't like to give up money, so don't get used to giving up money. I don't like doing it. But if they go back and forth, I'm like, no, the buyer's saying it's you, and no, the seller's saying, and it'll go on for a week. Then like, I'm just going to cancel over $600. Like, Okay, well, I'll let them know. You know how long it took us to find this house. You know how long it took us to find a buyer. But okay, you do realize it's going to cost you your mortgage plus utilities, all this over the $600. But I'll just see if they're okay with that, because you might get sued for that earnest money, and and then they're like, oh, and then you can usually get them to come forward, and I'll say, you know what, why don't we see if the buyer will be willing to pay $300 and you pay $300. Is that okay? But it's not our job. Just like the document storage and transaction fee, to me, it should not cost me money because they want to buy or sell a home. It is. It's just the cost of doing business. But there's a lot of agents that are like, no, I'm paying that. I don't okay, but it's like a copay. To me, like if I go to the doctor, I'm not going to tell them I'm paying my copay. It shouldn't cost me money because I'm coming to you and you're getting paid. But no, that's part of how it is. Like certain people have to pay certain things, but it shouldn't cost me money. You've hired me to sell your home, list your home, negotiate, market, whatever, or find it and negotiate and help you through all the inspections. But this stuff, those are fees that every brokerage has, and I don't get it. And that's how I explain it. That is not a fee for me. This is a fee to hold your file and for them to get paid as a brokerage. This has nothing to do with me, but it's a cost for doing business. I just need you to sign right there. But some agents try to incur that. And again, we're only getting so much, and some agents are knocking them down. And then now we're having to pay those fees. And then like before, we've got so much value, guys, and you need to appreciate that, and you need to make sure your clients appreciate that, because there are things that they don't know we're doing on the back end, and that's why I say it's super important to go to your closings, because they see your file. Don't just bring in, like some people walk in and they just sit there, like, bring your file. Show them what you're doing. And if you're a listing agent, I've got all my marketing, my flyers, my receipts for everything I've done. Not that they'll ever see it, but if they want to call me on it, you made so much money, you did nothing. And I'm like, oh, really? Oh, I think I beg to differ, Then I have proof right there. Most of the time, you're not going to get that. I like to tell you the horror stories to be prepared, because I don't want you to be caught off guard. Like, There's so much value, and you guys have put so much into getting your license. Show them that they really can't do it without us. They can try, but it's not going to go smoothly, and they might get sued later on. And that's our job, is to keep them out of all of that stuff. But to sign, if I always tell, whether you're representing the buyer or the seller, just go to your signings. It's super important. But any questions on any of that? No. Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for attending. Appreciate it. Anybody on watching the video, if you need the printout, just email me and I'll send it over to you. Have a great day.